Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the news. It's Tuesday. There's lots to talk about today. We're talking Kobbie Mainoo, David Ornstein and The Athletic have released a little snippet of an update on him. I say a little snippet of an update. It's only short, but it's pretty sort of powerful. Also, we've got Fabrizio Romano and the latest on Rasmus Hojlund. It looks as though there is a deal to be done and that will be done with Napoli. We've got all sorts as well, looking at midfield targets and a little update on Antony as well. But let's start with Kobbie Mainoo. We've been talking about him a lot for the last sort of 48 hours or so now. Just under then, since that game against Fulham, once again not coming off the bench. And I do think United fans and just us in general are looking for a fix. We're looking for a reason why this whole thing hasn't turned around the way we wanted it to, why we have only got 1 point from 2 games. And let's not forget, it is just 2 games. But the obvious answer and the obvious reason and the thing we can all point to is that man right there isn't playing. And partly that's true, and I think partly we are looking for something to cling on to here. But what is for sure is we want to know, and I want to know, that there is a future for Kobbie Mainoo at Manchester United and how that future is likely to unfold, and that the manager has got a plan for that future. Even if it's not right now, what is the plan going forward? This is what we're hearing from David Ornstein. He says, Kobbie Mainoo is open to leaving Manchester United. Head coach Ruben Amorim seems to prefer other midfielders. The issue is where Mainoo goes, as there do not appear to be many options ahead of this market closing. First of all, I'll take that last sentence as good news. The odds of him leaving this week are slim. But the idea that he's open to leaving Manchester United, he is willing to leave Manchester United, is, I mean, frankly, just terrible. It's an absolute gut punch. And he's the sort of player that you don't expect to leave Man United ever, let alone at 20 years old, because we can't find a way to get him in the team. Get your thoughts in this in the comments, because it is a big story, this. And obviously, once it turns into that, you know, we hear the name of a club that's interested, we hear a little bit more about it, then maybe we can start panicking a little bit more. But I do think this idea that Kobbie Mainoo is taking a step closer to the door in terms of he's up for leaving, that is a big worry for me. And it's something that I think Amorim needs to work out. Because every single manager has got their version of this. I think under Ten Hag it was Donny van der Beek. Under who else have we had sat on the bench down the years that would have fixed everything if only you'd have played him. This is Amorim's version of that. But the difference is we've seen Kobbie Mainoo in a Man United shirt doing things that we never saw out of Donny van der Beek. Mainoo works. Mainoo makes sense. He's a very good player. He's already had a long spell in the squad that was successful, that ended up with him playing in the Euros. We know all of this. I do think, and I do sort of understand that if you're picking between him and Bruno Fernandes, Bruno makes more sense most of the time. I think Bruno Fernandes right now is a better player than Kobbie Mainoo. And I don't expect that to be particularly controversial. The only problem is when you can only play one of them, and you've decided you're only going to play one of them. Because interestingly, I watched back the quote at the start of the summer when Adam McCullough, obviously for this channel, asked Ruben Amorim, what is the plan with Kobbie Mainoo? This was at the start of pre-season in New York. He said he can play in either of those positions. Amorim said that. Amorim said he can play in either position in the midfield, or in multiple positions in the midfield. That I get. Then post-Fulham, he said that he's fighting Bruno Fernandes for one position. In training, when we do the runs, when we do the practices, it's him and Bruno for one position. What's changed? What has changed there? That he maybe, I don't know, was it the games with him and Ugarte next to each other? Was it something that's happened in training? I'm not sure what it is. But why has he gone from being someone that can play in multiple positions and therefore have multiple opportunities to play to all of a sudden he's only playing if Bruno isn't? I think Amorim needs a second chance to talk about this. Because at the moment we're just seeing this sort of snowball effect of, by the sounds of it, he's not going to play until Bruno stops playing, which has then led a lot of people to sort of jump onto the old, well, let's sell Bruno then. And for me, that is not flawed logic, but it shouldn't have to be like that. You know, selling, like we've got a midfield at the moment that is Bruno and Casemiro, a 33-year-old Casemiro that at the end of the season 2 seasons ago, we all kind of understood was not at the levels required for Manchester United. He's still starting every game, And we look at Bruno Fernandes, our best player for the last 5 years, and go, he's the one that needs to be sold. When you look at that too, Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro, why is it that Bruno is the one that everyone's like, yeah, you know what, probably time to cash in? You think, look, there's a midfield with a big problem there, and I don't think it's Bruno Fernandes. And this whole Bruno versus Kobbie thing that it's almost become, I don't think that's helpful for anyone. I don't think it's good for Manchester United either. Adam, in quotes, Bruno is better than Mainoo. Joe, you really are deluded. I mean, you're deluded, I'm afraid. And I'm not trying to be rude there, but look at what Bruno Fernandes has done for the last 5 years. He got 19 goals and 19 assists last season for Man United. I understand that Mainoo has got 9 years on him in terms of age. He's got, a future ahead of him that Bruno probably doesn't have. In 10 years' time, Mainoo will be in his prime and Bruno will be retired. But if you honestly think that Kobbie Mainoo is right now and has been a better player than Bruno Fernandes in recent times, you are wrong. You are just wrong. Maybe there's an issue about where Bruno's playing. Are we getting the best? I get all that, but let's not twist our heads so much that we think that Bruno Fernandes isn't as good as Kobbie Mainoo. Come on. Got a few super chats. Andre Lauriston, who's a new member, thank you very much for joining. Anonymous Mango says Amorim's handling of Mainoo's post-injury has been baffling in my opinion. Brada and Wilcox need to give the Portuguese 3-4-3 fanatics head a wobble. Joshua Bowater says, just putting it out there, if they sell Kobbie, I'm chaining myself to the goal at Old Trafford like a Just Stop Oil protester. Yeah, I mean, we have to not get rid of Kobbie Mainoo. We have to find a reason and a way to play him, I think. I think we all need to see that. But I wonder if Amorim sees this, because the comments, the fact that, the response generally to this, even people, on the channel, the people that we know, the people you chat to, you sort of your friends, your family, United fans that you know, no one wants Mainoo to leave. Not a single person I've spoken to wants Kobbie Mainoo to leave. And I very, very rarely talk as a sort of like putting all of the United fan base into one opinion group, because it's never one opinion. Everyone's split. No one wants Mainoo to leave. I'm yet to see a single person that does. And that has to be seen by the manager. Obviously, you can't pick a team based on what the fans want, because if that was the case, you could just put a fan in the dugout and, how would that go? It wouldn't go very well. But you have to see that the traditions of the club, the fact that he's played the way he has, the fact that our midfield currently isn't particularly functional without him, I think Amorim needs to publicly come out, and I'm sure he'll be asked about it in the press conference before the Grimsby game, if there is one. I think there will be one. And talk about what exactly is the plan for Kobbie Mainoo. Because it can't just be, well, he plays when the bloke that plays every minute doesn't play. Because that's not going to work, I'm afraid. Amar says, honestly, this is getting crazy. I would swap Mainoo for at least 6 to 10 CMs at a similar age. Blimey, going right the other way. Trying to shoehorn Mainoo is contraproductive. Interesting. There's a lot of people in the comments obviously talking about this. It's all just publicity. Maybe they pinned Kobbie versus Bruno to ease the loss of selling Bruno. Potentially. Bruno is a fantastic player, but he's nearing the end. We should have sold him to Saudi. There's a lot of this. Again, why isn't Casemiro being spoken about? And I don't want to make it Bruno versus Casemiro either. But we've just accepted that to get Mainoo in, we have to get Bruno out of the way. Look at our midfield. It's Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro. Which one of them needs improving? Really, honestly, which one of those two players needs replacing with a younger, better player? Why have we just all gone, yeah, it has to be Bruno, I guess? No, it doesn't. Get a better version of Casemiro in. He's the one who's 33 and just isn't good enough. It's mad to me that it's become like, yeah, I guess it's got to be. It doesn't have to be Bruno. There's loads of other players. There's other midfielders. Bring someone in who can play alongside Bruno or Mainoo. I don't understand this. We've got an obvious weakness in midfield, and it is the defensive midfielder. It doesn't have to be sell Bruno. Let's keep Bruno and Mainoo and bring in someone that actually properly works next to him. Not sell Bruno, and then what? You got fucking Mainoo next to Casemiro? Is that our midfield going forward? That's not going to work. You still need Baleba. Do you understand what I mean? You need someone else next to them anyway. So you sell Bruno, great, you can afford Baleba. We'll just sell Sancho, Garnacho, Antony, Malacia, and Hojlund, and you can get Baleba anyway. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Speaking of, Rasmus Hojlund. This is according to Fabrizio Romano. Napoli are confident to get Rasmus Hojlund done very soon, and the talks are at the final stages. Loan with an option to buy clause that can become mandatory for fee close to 45 million euros. Contract until June 2030, so a 5-year contract. Waiting on exit terms agreement with Manchester United. There was also some reports elsewhere that it was to do with things, this sort of option that can become an obligation. Obviously, appearances. I think there'd be goals in there. One of the things that I saw was that Napoli's qualification for the Champions League was a big one, because presumably if they don't qualify for the Champions League, they won't have 45 million euros to splash out on a striker. That is a bit of a risk, but I think it makes sense. It's a shame that we can't just get a sale going, and weirdly, every single one of our players, even the ones who aren't on massive wages, it's looking like a loan with an option to buy or an obligation. Like, how come everyone else is selling people left, right and centre? And every single player we want to get rid of is loan, option, loan, option. We need to get money for Garnacho. That can't be a loan. And even Antony, some of these players just think, we're not just sitting around waiting for another club to decide if they want them in 12 months' time. I can't be doing with it. We need to get some players out and we need to actually sell them. But it looks as though the deal that we're going to get for Hojlund is close to being completed, and it's going to be an option that can become a mandatory if the right things are met. Was it Griezmann at Barca? Who was it a few years ago? There was someone who had a similar thing in their deal. And basically, if they, let's just throw a number out there, if they played 25 league games, that was one of the things. So they'd played 24 by like February, and they just didn't play him again because they didn't want to stick to that number. I think it was Griezmann. Was it at Barca or back at Atletico? And they just stopped playing him for 6 weeks, so they didn't have to use the obligation to buy. That is a bit of an issue. I don't like the idea of that. Yeah, but we'll have to wait and see. Like Kevin says there, not Kevin, sorry, Clown Poison, because Amorim told everyone that they're in the bomb squad, so why make a good bid? Just wait. Yeah, exactly. We'll see. Santanot says, after wanting so much Deadwood and bomb squad sold, the irony of the only one being sold being Bruno would be off the charts. Yeah, exactly. We can't be having that. Please hit the like button on the video if you're watching as well. Speaking of midfielders, as we were before, there has been, according to the Standard, there's been a bit of a sort of shortlist written up of Man United midfielders. Balaber's on there, which we know. We can put a tick next to that. We've already tried to sort of sign him this summer, which isn't going to happen now, supposedly. The other two on the list are Adam Wharton, as you can see there, and Morten Hjulmand from Sporting, obviously. The first two younger players, I think 21 and 20. Actually, they might both be 21, or maybe Wharton's 22 now. Hjulmand is 26, I believe, but obviously has played with Ruben Amorim at Sporting. According to the Standard, this is United's sort of transfer target shortlist. It's interesting, though, because I know they're all kind of defensive midfielders, but there's a big, quite a variety of what they're into and how they play. Balaber is much more of a sort of physical player. Wharton likes to sort of, he can run around, he's a good runner, but he does his progression with passing rather than dribbling primarily. And Hjulmand is, I know less about him admittedly, but I think he's a little bit more in the sort of Wharton category. But United are clearly after a defensive midfielder. This makes sense. This is what Manchester United need. Whether Bruno Fernandes is sold or not, it doesn't change that we need a defensive midfielder more than we need a sort of passing ball-playing midfielder. So hopefully United can sign someone. We've got a week left, or just under a week left of the transfer window. It ends Monday at 7 p.m, which we'll be here for, obviously covering the end of the window and that final day of the transfer window. We don't really, I know the Standard obviously are putting a couple of names out there. We know Balaber already. Wharton has been mentioned. Hjulmand is another one that's just sort of, it almost feels easy to link us with because of the connection to Ruben Amorim. But we don't have strong connections to any midfielders other than Balaber at the moment. And I think that if he is to leave, if we are to bring in someone that isn't Balaber, it would be interesting to see who it was, because I don't want to just get anyone. And the other two don't really seem like Balaber kind of players. So it's going to be interesting to see what we go for. Whether we just wait for Balaber next season and kind of accept the midfield is what it is, we'll have to wait and see, obviously. Chris C says, it seems to have all changed with Mainoo since the whole contract renewal and wages increase saga. Well, it kind of does timeline-wise, but he wasn't getting played regularly before that. Amorim's never quite loved playing Mainoo constantly. And also, you've brought in Mbeumo and Cunha, so that's two places that Mainoo used to play, where he's probably not going to play. This is the problem when you try and bring in good players. If you're, is Mainoo more productive and better than Cunha right now as a number 10? Probably not. Is he, same question for Mbeumo, probably not. Is he a better defensive midfielder and sort of holding midfielder than Bruno? Certainly, I think he can put in a better performance than Bruno did against Wolves and Fulham and Arsenal. But typically, you wouldn't, if you went and asked 100 people, is Kobbie Mainoo better than Bruno Fernandes? Most people would say no. So some of it kind of makes sense. The final line is, though, he needs to get minutes. So work it out somehow, Ruben, because you can't just have this guy either A, sitting on the bench for 12 months, or B, being sold. I think a lot of people would really sort of draw the line there, especially if we're not winning on the pitch and you've got your captain having a stinker like he did against Fulham and you still don't bring him off. What chance does Mainoo have under those circumstances? Let's get on to Antony, because this is from Nicolo Shearer, who is a sports journalist in Brazil, I believe, and he is saying that Antony is one step away from a return to Betis. Last details about the formula of the deal, but the winger wants to rejoin. Again, there's been other chat about United having to sort of make some concessions here to get this deal done. United don't want another loan. Betis do want another loan. Typically in these circumstances, the other club gets what they want and we don't. So I would expect this to be a loan with a potential, maybe we're looking at one of these, it can switch to an obligation to buy thing. It does feel as though we're sort of accepting with Antony. We just lost all the money on him. We've just lost everything we had on him, haven't we? Because in a couple of years he's going to leave for free. So, we'll have to wait and see whether United can get 15, 20 million for him. See if Betis have got any money by the end of the window. We'll have to see. We've got a lot of people in the comments. Adam Ismail says, no, Joe, you'd get 100 million for Bruno and you'll get Baleba. We can also get 100 million for Hojlund, Sancho, Antony and Garnacho. Easily 100 million there. No, Garnacho's 50 or 40 odd by himself. Hojlund 30, Sancho 15, 20, Antony 20, well over 100. So I get that if you want to sell Bruno regardless of that, I get it. But the idea that the only way we can afford Baleba is by selling Bruno, I don't agree with that. Personally, I just think we can afford him other ways. Sell Bruno, bring in Baleba. Yeah, this is, again, it's become a very popular idea. How good would Bruno and Baleba be next to each other, by the way? Wouldn't that be even better? I get that we want to sort of trust Mainoo and have a career path for him, but I just think selling your best player or the guy who's been your best player for the last 5 years, is that the way to do it? Putting all the pressure on Mainoo? Then, by the way, let's say we sell Bruno and we have Baleba and Mainoo starting. Mainoo gets a hamstring injury. What even is your midfield after that? Who's playing there? Casemiro and Baleba? Ugarte and Baleba? I can't see it. Mount and Baleba, I guess. But again, that's just worse. Why not have Bruno and Baleba there? I don't know. I think this whole thing, how it's somehow become Mainoo versus Bruno, I'm not a fan of. Let's have them both. Let's have Bruno and Mainoo. Let's have a better squad, not a worse one. Let's have Bruno, Mainoo and Baleba. Let's do that for me. Right, that's going to be all from me. We're going to be hearing from Laurie Whitwell soon. It may be tonight, it may be tomorrow. I want to get the latest on this Kobbie Mainoo stuff. What exactly is going on? So stick around for that. Also, me and Stephen Howson will be here later on as well. And the return of the Academy review will be coming as well. Jay and Finn, some good news. The under-18s are smacking goals in. JJ Gabriel smashing it up. Kai Rooney's chipping in with goals as well. All very exciting on that front. So if you want a little bit of light relief and actually be able to be look at something that's actually promising for once, that will be the one to tune in for. Thank you very much for joining me. Hit like on the video if you haven't already. We'll see you in a bit.